Today I wish to celebrate the genius of Michael Palin. Michael Palin was one of the central characters to Monty Python. Probably members of the younger generations will still be left slightly cold by that, and they've undoubtedly heard the name but not necessarily know anything about this incredible comedy group that started as a university theatre group and became it's difficult to really explain how radically they transformed modern appreciation of humour. They completely bewitched a generation with their incredible silliness and yet their unbelievable depth. And what started as being I think largely silly in their first TV series, as time went on, people got to see more and more the depth of these people. And Michael Palin, then of course became, a very, very well-known TV personality. He did all these 80 days around the world trips, and I think he did multiple series of that. I'm not the greatest follower of those shows. That was kind of more for my parents. And yet, I do remember seeing one particular episode where he was going over the dateline, and there was this tradition on the ship that people going over the dateline for the first time would have to drink this unbelievable potion of, all the worst things that you could imagine, with chilies and sauces, and it's just this absolutely toxic thing that he was given, and went glug, 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 glug. Lovely. And I thought, yes, that is genius just in itself, to take something that is supposed to be this absolutely awful initiation and render it, completely diffuse it of its potency by just accepting it in such a beautiful way. So he really impressed me with his strength of character there. But I think one of the times where I really, really kind of got respect for Michael Palin, far beyond his silliness and his acting capabilities, was when I saw clips of him being interviewed by, I think it was Michael Parkinson, with John Cleese, another member of Monty Python, on mainstream television when there were only 3 or 4 channels and millions of people across the country would have been watching that. And they were having a debate with a Christian priest, Catholic I believe, who was really upset about the film that they had done, The Life of Brian, which is a retelling of the story of the life of Jesus, which is absolutely brilliant. It's so funny. If you haven't watched it, one really should. It's so amazing, so funny, so profound. And they are defending their choice to do something which they were accused of extreme blasphemy. And I think that the way that they expressed themselves, the depth and understanding that they brought to that conversation was absolutely remarkable. They didn't back down in any way, but they weren't insensitive to why it was that other people would find that offensive, but they absolutely stood by their right to make fun of anything, and especially those things that we take to be sacred cows, that nothing should be beyond the realms of humour. And the likes of John Cleese and Michael Palin have continued to express their concerns about censorship and what happens to a society when it loses its sense of humour. So Michael Palin has enormous relevance even right now, because the culture that seems to have been fermenting over the last 10 years is really losing its sense of humour and its ability to make fun of itself, and that's a very important skill. Because there are times I've got a very good sense of humour, and there are times in my life when I've started taking myself so seriously, I've lost how to see the funny side of things. And that usually ends up in a very, very, very bad state, for me personally, as well as for other people, the people around me. So I've learned from personal experience just how important that is, to retain that glint in the eye, that smile on the lips that prevents us from losing ourselves in the gravity of our own stories. So today I'm choosing to celebrate Michael Palin.